Welcome to StoryRealm Audio. You are listening to Echoes Beneath the Dead, an immersive forensic mystery audiobook filled with secrets, suspense, and dark discoveries. Settle in and enjoy this relaxing narration as the evidence begins to speak. Chapter 1: The Building That Forgot Her. The city was still waking when Kay Scarpetta turned the rental SUV onto the old block, expecting memory and finding ruin. Yellow machines crouched in the gray December light, bulldozers, excavators, steel-jawed things, tearing into concrete as if the building had committed a crime. Dust climbed into the air in slow, pale breaths. A blade slammed forward. A wall broke open. The sound was not demolition so much as punishment. Scarpetta eased almost to a stop. For a moment, she could not speak. Half the face of the old office of the chief medical examiner was gone. The place where she had spent years among the dead, among evidence and grief and impossible answers, had been peeled back to its bones. Rooms that had once held voices, stretchers, microscopes, phones ringing at midnight, now hung open to the morning like wounds. "Someone should have told me," she said. It was not a dramatic sentence. It was worse than that. It was quiet. She had come to Richmond believing she could manage a small indulgence. A drive past an old address. A private glance at what had been. She had not expected to find her past being fed into a mechanical mouth. The invitation had come the day before, while she stood in the bright kitchen of her South Florida home, one hand holding the phone, the other preparing a marinade of bourbon, honey, and olive oil. Dr. Joel Marcus, Virginia's current chief medical examiner, the man who held the position that had once been hers, had called with a case. A 14-year-old girl, Jilly Paulson, found dead in bed after the flu. No obvious cause. Nothing on the surface that explained why a child who should have recovered had not. Scarpetta had asked the correct questions. Who found her? Who was in the house? What did the autopsy show? Marcus had answered only enough to keep her listening. "I'd rather review the details in person," he had said. "It's sensitive." She should have refused. She had felt the warning inside her as clearly as a hand on her arm. She should have asked why he wanted her, why now, why this case. Instead she moved around her kitchen, opening cabinets she did not need to open, avoiding the anger that had already gathered under her ribs. She had been dismissed from that office years ago. Publicly. Politically. Unfairly. She had left Virginia and told herself she would never return. And then there was Aspen. For months she had planned to meet Benton Wesley there. Time in the snow. Time without cases. Time to mend what had never fully healed between them. But Benton had called with a case of his own, one he would not explain, and suddenly the trip became postponed, then uncertain, then something she could no longer count on. So when Marcus called, she said yes. Now the old building was collapsing in front of her, and Richmond seemed to be telling her what no one else had bothered to say. Life had moved on. Pete Marino sat beside her in black cargo pants, black boots, a black jacket, and an LAPD baseball cap pulled low over his eyes, though he had never been Los Angeles police and would have mocked anyone who tried too hard to look like he was. He stared out the windshield. "Just what the doctor ordered," he muttered. "You back in town 5 years later, and first thing you see is your old place getting chewed up." "I'm glad I saw it," she said. "Yeah. I can tell." She ignored the sarcasm. "Someone should have told me." "Someone like Marcus," Marino said. "The prick who begged you to fly here." "I'm sure it didn't occur to him." "The little prick," Marino said. "I hate him already." Scarpetta circled the block slowly. The Gothic tower of Main Street Station rose nearby, its old clock finally working after years of stubborn silence. 16 minutes past 8. When she had lived here, the clock had been frozen, a dead face watching her come and go at all hours. Now even that had been repaired. Behind the building, the bay door was still intact. She could almost hear it groaning upward, almost see hearses backing in, ambulance doors opening, stretchers rattling. The dead had arrived there in all weather, in all conditions, from all corners of the Commonwealth. "Take a good look," she told Marino. "I did the first time around. We're going around twice." He sighed, but he looked. On the second pass, Scarpetta noticed a man in olive work pants and a dark jacket standing near a large yellow tractor parked close to where she used to leave her own car. He was bent toward the engine, doing something with both hands. He stood in front of one of the enormous rear tires. A small unease touched her. He should not be standing there. Then they turned the corner, and he vanished behind dust and broken concrete. For anyone listening to this audiobook, the moment might pass quietly: a man, a machine, a cold morning. But in true storytelling, danger often enters without music. It appears as a detail. A posture. A bad angle. A choice made too casually. Scarpetta drove away from the ruins, and Richmond closed behind her like a door. Chapter 2, Circles of Dust. Marino removed the LAPD cap and studied it as if it had betrayed him. His bald head gleamed faintly in the weak morning light. "You ought to leave that thing in the car," Scarpetta said. "You always say advice is friendly and for my own good," he replied. "It never is." "It is this time." He tossed the cap into his lap. "Lucy gave it to me." "I know. From Los Angeles. She opened an office there, Marino. Not a theme park." "Same difference." He looked toward the demolition site again, his face hardening in the way it did when he was trying not to feel something. For all his noise, Marino was not immune to the past. He had worked cases from that old building too. He had stood in its morgue, smoked outside its doors, cursed its bureaucracy, and depended on its answers. "They probably need another parking deck," he said. "Stations running again. Amtrak. Tourists. State types. You knew? Maybe I heard something. You might have told me. I forgot. Information like this is useful." "I said I forgot." Then, softer, "Don't blame you for being in a mood." "I'm not in a mood." "You're driving 2 miles an hour around a corpse of a building. That's a mood." She almost smiled, but it died quickly. The building had never been beautiful. Low, square, stained by age and weather, it had been a 70s block of concrete with bad light and worse memories. Still, it had been hers. Inside those walls, she had learned how violence speaks after the body goes silent. She had stood over victims whose names were known and unknown, children and addicts, executives and street people, suicides and homicides, the abandoned and the loved. Marino pointed toward the black crematorium stack rising from the roof. "Remember that chimney? You knew when Old Smoky was running." "I remember." "And the anatomical division downstairs. Those bodies in the tanks." He lifted his knees awkwardly. "Pink as boiled ham." "Not long ago you couldn't lift your legs like that," she said. He blinked at her. "I mean it," she added. "You're moving better. You've lost weight." His mood brightened immediately. Compliments were rare currency between them, and he never pretended he did not like spending them. "South Beach diet," he said. "I'm a Florida boy now. I hope you're eating vegetables." "I eat things that used to eat vegetables." "That isn't the same." He grinned, then let the grin fade. "So Benton's still in Aspen?" "He has work." "He always has work." "So do you. That's why nobody ever gets anywhere." She tightened her hands on the wheel. "I don't want to talk about Benton." "That makes 2 of us," Marino said, though it clearly did not. He knew too much because he watched too closely. He had seen the distance between her and Benton after Benton's impossible return to her life. Years of grief had rewritten her, and reunion had not erased what absence had done. She loved Benton. She knew that. But love after trauma was not a room one simply walked back into. The SUV merged toward Broad Street. Dust from the demolition drifted behind them, swallowing the tractor and the man in olive pants from view. Marino tapped the cap on his knee. "Bad sign, document." "You think everything is a bad sign?" "No. I think bad signs are bad signs." She did not answer. The city around them had changed. Restaurants where there had been boarded windows. Condos where there had been warehouses. Streets cleaned and renamed and marketed. Richmond had polished some things and buried others. Scarpetta felt the old ache return. No one had warned her because no one believed she needed warning. That was the true injury. Her history here had become municipal debris. Her building was not a shrine. It was a footprint needed for parking. As they drove toward the new medical examiner's office, the rhythm of the morning shifted. The relaxing narration of memory gave way to something sharper. She had not come back only to grieve concrete. A dead girl waited in a refrigerated room, and somewhere in the machinery of power, Scarpetta suspected, her own name had been placed like bait. Chapter 3, A Second Home in Hollywood. Far south of Richmond, in a different kind of heat, Edgar Allan Poe sat naked in a lawn chair in the center of a stale apartment and admired the fact that he now had a home in Hollywood. A second home, he corrected himself. That mattered. When people heard Hollywood, they would imagine hills and movie stars, white letters above Los Angeles, sunglasses and swimming pools, convertibles and gates. They would not picture Garfield Court in Broward County, Florida, a 2-story yellow stucco building with no court, no garden, and 3 exhausted palms in a parking lot. But Poe did not require their accuracy. He had arrived 2 weeks earlier after a long drive from Richmond in an old white Buick packed with possessions, clothes, toiletries, a laptop, books, paper, pencils, a lamp, linens, a VCR, a television, a wig, cigars, bottles of touch-up paint, and several important companions that no one else would have recognized as companions. He had driven until he was shaking with fatigue and excitement. He had not stopped at a motel. Motels had parking lots. Parking lots had thieves. Thieves broke windows and took what did not belong to them. He had accidentally found himself in a neighborhood called Liberia after dark, where an ice cream truck played its sweet tune while children approached with coins. The sight had offended and frightened him. Innocence did not belong there. Music did not belong there. Children should not stand in what he considered enemy territory, even if the children themselves seemed unconcerned. He escaped and eventually discovered Garfield Street. The apartment building appeared in his windshield like a promise. Benjamin P. Shoup, the landlord, had met him in an office thick with cologne and body heat. Shoup had dentures too white to be trusted and jewelry too loud to be accidental. No air conditioning, Shoup had said. You want it, buy a window unit. But this is season. Everybody wants to be here. Poe paid cash. No identification was requested. No history. No questions. That suited him perfectly. Now he sat in the airless living room with a pencil clamped between his teeth, speaking around it as if it were a cigar he could not afford to waste. See, Mother? We made it. His voice was blurred by the pencil, but his tone was pleased. Beneath the chair sat a cookie tin. To anyone else it was a container. To Poe it was a presence. His mother's presence. Or at least something close enough for conversation. In his mind, she answered in her old drunken drawl, her words heavy and cruel. Thin soup, Edgar Allan. That's what you are. Stop it, he said. That's unkind. Not enough sap in the tree. Mother. He picked up a trade magazine for funeral directors and let it fall open to advertisements for urns and keepsakes. His favorite was a pewter box shaped like a stack of fine old books with a quill resting on top. It seemed designed for him. Edgar Allan Poe, named for greatness, keeper of ashes, student of presentation. I should order it, he said. Shouldn't I? The cookie tin said nothing, but he imagined approval, envy, accusation. Not yet, he decided. There had to be something to celebrate first. And there was not. His work in Florida had not gone as planned. He thought of the salmon-colored mansion on the water, the one he had found exactly as intended. He had been inside. The big fish had been there. The little fish too. But the little fish had escaped, and everything had gone wrong. His fingers twitched. The little fish got away, he murmured. But the big fish remains. He crossed the room and lifted his red, white, and blue t-ball bat from the corner. He had touched up its painted stars and stripes 111 times. He polished it now with a white handkerchief, careful, loving, ceremonial. On the dingy wall, a large pencil sketch had begun to take shape. A staring eye. A cheek. A face emerging slowly from plaster and obsession. He wet the pencil with his mouth and darkened the lashes. You look especially pretty today, he told the drawing. Soon there'll be color in your cheeks. This immersive story, if heard in the dark, might seem to pause here with the hum of a refrigerator, the closeness of Florida heat, the sound of a disturbed man breathing through his teeth. Poe looked down at the cookie tin. I believe we should have a visitor, he said. Would you like that, Mother? In his mind, Mother did. Chapter 4, The Visitor in the Tin. The apartment smelled of old grease, cigars, sweat, and canned food. Poe saw the disorder and resented it as if someone else had made it. Paper plates lay on the counter. A pot soaked in cold cloudy water. Clothes spilled from duffel bags. Books, pencils, envelopes, and cigar boxes occupied the carpet in small territories of private meaning. He went to a cardboard box and knelt. Inside were videotapes, photographs, labeled envelopes, and cigar boxes filled with what remained of certain people he liked to remember. His handwriting on each label was small and exact. He found Mrs. Arnett. "Mother," he announced, "Mrs. Arnett is here." He placed the cigar box on the lawn chair as if offering a guest the best seat in the room. Then he opened an envelope of Polaroids and selected his favorite photograph. Mrs. Arnett had been old, with hair tinted a determined blue and skin made rosy by his careful work. He remembered the surgery of her mouth, the invisible sutures, the caps placed beneath her eyelids to restore the proper curve. He had always considered himself skilled with appearances. Death was not ugly if handled by someone with standards. "She looks wonderful," he said. "Doesn't she?" He dipped a finger into the cigar box and blew a faint puff of white dust into the air. His mother, in his mind, became jealous. That pleased him. So many had cancer, he told her. So many. He wiped his fingers on the handkerchief. Cleanliness mattered. Ritual mattered. Presentation mattered more than almost anything. He thought again of the mansion. He had watched it. Studied it. Learned its habits. He had expected one thing and found another. The woman he wanted, the important one, the big fish, had not been where she should have been in the way he needed her to be. Another woman had been there, a smaller one, glittering and vain and useful. The encounter had become messy, and he hated mess. He hated improvisation unless it was his own idea. Now the little fish was gone. Hidden, perhaps. Protected. It did not matter, he told himself. Little fish were distractions. The big fish would remain. And the big fish would be unhappy. That thought warmed him. He paced with the bat in hand. Its painted barrel twitched at his side. He imagined chalk dust on his palms, the arc of a swing, the clean shock of impact. His lungs tightened, and he coughed once, angrily. His doctor in Richmond had denied him a flu shot when supply ran short. That insult had lodged inside him like a seed. No doctor would deny a Hollywood patient. No doctor would deny him again. He looked toward the blinds, closed against the Florida sun. Beyond them, Garfield Street shimmered. He had errands to run. Observations to make. Perhaps, if fortune favored the disciplined, an outing. Work to do, he whispered. Then he returned the Polaroid to its envelope, closed Mrs. Arnett's cigar box, and slid it carefully back among the others. The day was waiting. And Pogue, who believed himself patient, did not realize how quickly his hunger was growing. Chapter 5, The Man in the New Office. Dr. Joel Marcus smiled as if smiling were a technical procedure he had learned late and never trusted. "Kay," he said. At last. Scarpetta shook his hand and immediately wished she had not. His fingers were dry and narrow, his grip without warmth. He was a small man in a loose white shirt, a dated tie, gray trousers, and wire-rimmed glasses that caught the lobby light. A strip of dull hair circled the back of his head like an afterthought. "Dr. Marcus," she said. The building around them was Biotech 2, the facility she had helped design, fund, and open before politics had removed her from it. Granite. Glass block. Security doors. A lobby that should have felt familiar and instead seemed to have withdrawn from her. Marino emerged from the men's room adjusting his black cargo pants, cap back on his head. Scarpetta introduced him. Marcus's face tightened. "You didn't mention bringing anyone." "He's an experienced investigator," she said. "This is a sensitive matter." "Good," Marino said loudly. "I'm sensitive as hell." Across the lobby, a guard stepped out of the evidence area. Marino spotted him immediately. "Yo, Bruce." The guard stared, then broke into recognition. "Marino? Holy smoke." Marcus stiffened. "This is not a beer hall." He opened the secured door with a card on a lanyard around his neck and led them into the chief medical examiner's wing. The reception area still held the same blue sofa, the same chair, the same farm painting. But the plants were gone. Scarpetta remembered watering them herself, turning them toward the seasonal light. Their absence wounded her more than she expected. Marcus moved quickly. "I have staff meeting. Full house this morning. You can wait in the library with coffee." "I'm here to consult," she said. "Yes, and I'll get to you." Marino wandered into a clerk's cubicle, where a young woman named Julie looked up from autopsy photographs. Within seconds, he was seated too close, explaining some absurd theory about body fat, intelligence, and drug dealers. Julie began laughing despite herself. Marcus looked appalled. Scarpetta did not rescue him. Instead, she followed Marcus into the library, a room she had once loved. Now medical texts lay abandoned on tables. Journals were stacked carelessly. Coffee cups, paper scraps, and an empty donut box occupied the big horseshoe table. Books she had donated from her own collection were out of order, one upside down. Anger rose in her. "I think we need ground rules," she said. Marcus blinked. "Ground rules? You called me. I came. If you want my help, this office is open to me and to whomever I bring." His politeness thinned. "Frankly, bringing you here wasn't my idea." There it was. Whose idea was it? The health commissioner wanted an outside opinion. Why didn't he call me himself? Marcus glanced toward the door. The girl's father contacted him. When Dr. Fielding couldn't determine cause or manner, pressure followed. The commissioner wanted what he called a full-court press. Jilly Paulson. 14. Dead after influenza. No explanation. Scarpetta absorbed the mention of Jack Fielding, her former colleague. Still here. Still in the office. Still part of the machine that had gone on without her. "Then I am not here for public relations," she said. "I am here for the dead child." "Of course. And don't call me Kay in front of your staff. In fact, don't call me Kay at all." His eyes cooled. For an audiobook shaped by forensic storytelling, this was the threshold, the living posturing over jurisdiction, the dead waiting without opinion. Scarpetta knew which side deserved her loyalty. Marcus opened the door. "Staff meeting, then," he said. Chapter 6, Questions at the Foot of the Table. Scarpetta chose the chair at the foot of the conference table. It was a small rebellion, and she knew it. When she had run the office, she had never sat there. The head of the table had been hers. Now Dr. Marcus occupied it, and she took the farthest seat as if distance might protect her from the insult of the morning. Marino dragged a chair from the wall and placed it beside her, neither fully included nor fully excluded. He leaned close. "Staff hates him." She did not respond. A moment later, he slid a notepad toward her. "FBI involved." She read the words and felt the case shift under her. Jilly Paulson's death had no established cause, no manner, no obvious crime. Why would federal interest exist? Marino must have made calls while she was in the library. He always did. Marcus noticed the movement. Marino took out an unlit cigarette and tapped it against the pad. "This is a non-smoking building," Marcus said. "Should be," Marino replied. "Smoke'll kill you." The staff moved through routine cases. An elderly woman found dead in bed. An elderly man with renal failure, misread aloud as nerve failure, which Marcus mocked until the young doctor reporting it flushed scarlet. A suspected heroin overdose on a toilet. A prison death. A possible hypothermia. A sudden diabetic collapse. An infant death. A young man shot in a street. Then came the call that sharpened the room. A 42-year-old man named Theodore Whitby had died while working on a tractor at the demolition site on North 14th Street. Scarpetta saw him again immediately. Olive pants. Dark jacket. Standing by the huge tire. Dr. Remy read from the note. He was near the tractor, then found badly injured on the ground. Apparently run over. Dead when rescue arrived. Marino stopped tapping the cigarette. Marcus turned toward Fielding. "You take that one. Make sure there wasn't a medical event before the accident. Be thorough." His eyes flicked toward Scarpetta. "The old building," he said. "A bit before my time, but that was yours, wasn't it?" "It was," she said. "Then I moved here." The reminder sounded petty even to her, but she did not take it back. Before dismissing the staff, Marcus began what he called mental stretching. Test cases for a lecture. A pregnant woman assaulted by her boyfriend, fetus lost. What should be done? A dying AIDS patient in hospice requests withdrawal of support. Is it a medical examiner case? Is it homicide? He aimed the questions at Scarpetta with a pleasant voice and a hostile heart. She answered clinically. The fetus should be autopsied, assigned a case number, certified under fetal death procedures, the assault documented for what it was. Hospice deaths involving informed refusal and comfort care were not homicides simply because death had been permitted to arrive. Marcus tried to corner her with politics, law, and language. She did not let him. Marino finally said, "You ever thought of writing questions for Jeopardy?" No one laughed loudly, but several wanted to. The meeting ended with chairs sliding back and people escaping. Scarpetta remained seated a moment longer, hearing the invisible machinery behind the case. A dead girl. A pressured commissioner. A hostile chief. The FBI somewhere in the shadows. And now a man killed by a tractor outside the building where Scarpetta's old life was being destroyed. The immersive story had begun to braid its threads. Chapter 7, Snow Behind Glass. In Aspen, Benton Wesley stood by a wall of glass and listened to Marino's voice fracture through the cell phone. Snow lay in the branches of aspen trees and black spruce. The morning was painfully clear, sunlight striking the white slopes above town. Across the street, a man and a boy stepped out carrying skis, their breath smoking in the cold. "Say that again," Benton said. "I said Marcus brought her in to kick her around," Marino replied. "Or try to." Benton's jaw tightened. "He didn't bring her in because he wanted to," Benton said. "Someone ordered it." "The health commissioner." "Yes." "You knew?" "I suspected." The line crackled. Marino told him about the meeting, the note, the mood of the office, the tractor death, the way Marcus tried to bait Scarpetta. Benton listened without interrupting. His mind worked in layers. Scarpetta in Richmond. Jilly Paulson dead. Marcus compromised or frightened. Marino alert but impulsive. "Tell her to be careful," Benton said. "Extremely careful." "About what?" "Her successor is of interest." Marino was quiet. "You mean Marcus?" "I mean use caution. You always say things like that when you don't want to say things. Stay with her. She won't like it." "No," Benton said. "She never does." He ended the call and returned to the couch near the fire. On the coffee table lay a legal pad covered with his angular handwriting. Beside it rested a Glock pistol. The notes were not about Jilly Paulson. They were about the woman upstairs. Henry Walden. 28 years old. Actress. Beautiful in a damaged, off-center way. Lucy's lover, or former lover, or something less stable than either word. Henry had been attacked in Lucy's Florida house. Found naked, injured, unconscious, posed in a scene that was either staged by the offender or staged by Henry herself. Benton did not believe she had done it to herself. That was the problem. If the scene had been fake, the psychology would be simpler. Henry was narcissistic, manipulative, theatrical, hungry for attention. She blurred truth and performance so instinctively that even pain could become a prop. But the attack had been real. Someone had entered Lucy's house. Someone had hurt Henry. Someone had left behind a story written in bruises. Lucy had flown Henry to Aspen and begged Benton to help. "You can read people," Lucy had said. "Find out what happened. I'm not a psychiatrist. You're what she needs." He was not sure anyone was what Henry needed. A sound on the stairs made him look up. Henry stood on the landing in a red flannel robe, one hand on the rail. Her hair was tangled from sleep. Her green eyes held suspicion and invitation in equal measure. "Who was that?" she asked. "Good morning," Benton said. "There's coffee." "Was it Lucy?" "No." "Her aunt?" "No one knows you're here except Lucy and Rudy." "I know about you and her aunt." Benton removed his reading glasses. "Boundaries, Henry." She smiled faintly. "Rudy misses me." "Boundaries," he repeated. She descended slowly, as if performing for an unseen camera. Outside, wind lifted snow from the trees and blew it like smoke past the windows. Benton's notes lay open on the table. Shared paranoia. Narcissistic structure. Post-offense behavior. Critical pressure before Christmas. This was not a relaxing narration anymore, though the fire crackled warmly and the mountains shone. This was containment. A damaged woman in a borrowed house. A gun in reach. A predator unaccounted for. And somewhere far away, Scarpetta had just stepped into another trap. Chapter 8, The Woman on the Landing. Henry sat in the tan leather chair across from Benton and tucked her legs beneath her. The robe shifted enough to reveal pale skin high on her thigh. Benton did not look. I showered, she said. That usually helps. Why do you care? Because small things matter. Sleep. Food. Clean clothes. Control. She watched him with a cobra's stillness. Every morning since arriving, she had asked some version of the same question. Why did he care? Why had Lucy sent her away? Why was Scarpetta not here? Why was Benton with Henry instead of the woman he loved? She must be angry, Henry said. Your vacation, and I'm here. She understands. It was not entirely true. Scarpetta had not understood. Not fully. He had told her a case had come up, and she had heard the wall in his voice. They needed time together. They had said so. Then he had withheld the one thing that might have explained his absence, Lucy's crisis, Henry's attack, the danger to everyone near it. Tell me about your dream, he said. Henry picked at a toenail. I don't remember. You called him the beast before. Her fingers stilled. The beast came into the house, she whispered. No one let him in, Benton said. The back door was unlocked. The alarm was off. I had the flu. I was cold. I went outside to sit in the sun. I forgot. Lucy doesn't blame you. She thinks everything is my fault. He let silence do its work. Henry rubbed her big toe. It had been broken in the assault. Pain, memory, and performance passed across her face so quickly that Benton could not separate them. I dreamed I was on a trail, she said at last. There was a rock wall beside me. A crack in it. I squeezed into the crack and got stuck. Her breathing changed. I couldn't move. Couldn't breathe. My chest couldn't expand. I thought someone could chip me out, maybe with a pickaxe, but the rock was too hard. Nobody could get me out. I was going to die. Benton listened, calm and unreadable. Smothering. Compression. Restraint. Panic. He pictured the scene photographs, Henry on the bed, naked, face down, arms stretched above her head, legs bent unevenly, blood at her nose, bruising on the backs of her hands and upper body. He resisted the easy conclusions. Her beauty mattered only as it might have mattered to the offender. Her body was evidence, not temptation. She rose suddenly and went to the kitchen for more coffee. The Glock was in a high cabinet. She did not know which one. He had placed it there when her back was turned. She returned without offering him any. Selfishness was part of her architecture. Injury had not created it, injury had amplified it. The ER doctor thought I did it myself, she said. What did he say? He told the nurse. He thought I was asleep. You pretended. I'm an actor. Yes, Benton said. You are. Her eyes hardened. I should sue him. Maybe. First we need facts. I can't remember. I know. But memory was coming. In fragments. Dreams. Anger. Jealous comments about Lucy. References to the Ferrari she had driven without permission. The California blue Ferrari, not the black one. Trips to the training camp. Attention she enjoyed. Attention that may have led someone directly to Lucy's house. Benton made a note. Point of contact likely vehicle. Henry stared toward the windows. Lucy sent me away because of the beast. Lucy sent you here because she wants you safe. She sent me here because she's afraid. Benton said nothing. That, at least, was true. Chapter 9, In the Morgue's Cold Light. Water drummed into deep sinks. X-rays glowed on light boxes. Stainless steel reflected overhead lamps in long white streaks. Theodore Whitby lay on a gurney between Scarpetta and Jack Fielding, still in his work clothes. Olive pants torn open at the thighs. Black jacket embroidered with Tia Whitby in red thread. Mud and red clay on his boots. His lower body was broken in ways that told the story before any incision could. Rigor had barely begun. He was still warm. Scarpetta leaned close to the gash across his face. The injury nearly separated his nose from his face. Run stat alcohol and carbon monoxide, she said. You smell anything? Fielding asked. No alcohol. No cherry pink lividity. Do it anyway. Fielding had changed. His once strong body had thinned. His face was puffy and irritated, eyes watery, skin inflamed at the collar and hands. He sniffed often. He looked tired in a way sleep would not fix. Across the room, young military trainees in scrubs assisted with another autopsy. Fielding snapped at one of them for not tying off a carotid artery for the funeral home. Scarpetta felt the old authority rise in her. If this were still her morgue, she would have corrected him privately and firmly. No one learned well under humiliation. But this was no longer her morgue. Fielding lowered his voice. Marcus hasn't done one autopsy since he got here. Jack. What? Nobody's listening. Everyone in a morgue listens. He gave a humorless laugh. You should have called me before coming. I should have. The admission landed between them. They removed Whitby's boots and socks. Scarpetta unbuckled his belt, unbuttoned the torn pants, and studied the tire marks. The pattern crossed his midsection with brutal clarity. He was probably trying to start the tractor from the ground, she said. Standing in front of the rear tire. Maybe bypassing the ignition with a screwdriver. Tractor was in gear. It caught. And ran him over. Yes. Fielding nodded toward the facial wound. Cut? Maybe not. The tire may have dragged the skin. Look for tissue bridging. Swab for grease, rust, trace metal. Document everything. Because family will sue. Because family will suffer, she said. Lawyers make it about money later. At first it's shock. Nobody wants a death like this to be stupidity and bad luck. The words affected her more than she expected. She had seen Whitby alive. He had been breathing, moving, occupied with a task. Within minutes he had become evidence. That was the line forensic medicine crossed every day, the impossible distance between person and body, between mourning plans and autopsy notes. Fielding looked at her. Dinner tonight? My place. 7. Yes. And Marino? Don't call him my sidekick. Fine. Invite your heavily armed emotional support animal. Despite herself, she almost smiled. Then the morgue doors opened and a draft moved through the room, carrying the cold smell of the dead. Jilly Paulson waited elsewhere in the building. A child in storage because no one had released her, because no one had explained her, because politics had wrapped itself around her small body. Scarpetta looked down at Whitby's ruined clothes. Photograph the jacket before cutting, she said. And save every trace. Fielding nodded. For now, this was what they could do. Respect the evidence. Respect the dead. Respect the story the body told when the living had already begun lying. Chapter 10, The Girl No One Took Home. Jilly Paulson had been dead for 2 weeks and still had not gone to a funeral home. That fact troubled Scarpetta more deeply than Marcus's insults, more than the ruined library, more than the demolished building. Families delayed burial for many reasons: poverty, denial, conflict, shock, but a child left in the custody of the state always became an accusation. Marcus claimed the parents were too distraught to make arrangements. Scarpetta did not accept easy explanations from people who offered them too quickly. She requested every file, every photograph, every slide, every toxicology result, every call sheet and scene note. Marcus resisted without quite refusing. Fielding, however, knew how to find things. By late afternoon, Scarpetta sat with a stack of reports in a small office that had once belonged to someone she hired. Marino stood near the door, restless. FBI involved, she said. That's what I heard. From whom? People who don't like Marcus. That doesn't narrow it down. He smiled. Nope. Jilly had been home from school with influenza symptoms. Fever, aches, weakness. Her mother found her unresponsive around noon. No overt trauma. No obvious poisoning. No natural disease sufficient to explain death. A child sick enough to stay home, not sick enough to die. Who was in the house? Marino asked. Marcus avoided that question. Always a good sign. Scarpetta studied the photographs. Jilly's face was peaceful in the terrible way some dead children look peaceful, as if adults might be forgiven if they called it sleep. But death was not sleep. Death altered tone, color, gravity. Death took possession of the body and erased every future tense. 14. Scarpetta let herself feel that number. Then she put it away. A forensic pathologist could care. She could not drown. What does Benton know? Marino asked. She looked up sharply. Why? He told me to stay with you. When did you talk to him? When you were busy being professionally disrespected. Marino. He says Marcus is of interest. His words. Scarpetta leaned back. Benton did not use phrases casually. Of interest meant information existed, probably classified or sensitive, and he could not discuss it over a cell phone. It also meant danger might not be limited to professional humiliation. What else? She asked. Extreme caution. She closed the folder. Outside the office, the medical examiner building hummed with fluorescent light, rolling carts, distant phones, the subdued voices of people who worked among final facts. It should have comforted her. Instead, she sensed disorder beneath the routine. Jilly Paulson was not simply unexplained. She was connected. To whom or what, Scarpetta did not yet know. But the dead often entered a room with invisible strings attached, and if one pulled carefully enough, the living began to move. This will need a second autopsy, she said. Marino nodded. Thought so. And a scene reconstruction. Full medical history. Family interviews. School. Friends. Internet activity. Anyone with access to the house. Now you're talking my language. She stood and gathered the files. In another wing, Theodore Whitby's autopsy would continue. Across town, the old building would be reduced to rubble. In Aspen, Benton was guarding secrets of his own. In Florida, someone unknown to them all was breathing hot apartment air and thinking about fish. The storytelling threads tightened. Jilly Paulson, silent and small, waited at the center of one knot. Chapter 11, The Fish That Got Away. Pogue dressed carefully for his outing. The wig came first, black and curly, adjusted until it sat just right. Then the tinted glasses. Clothing selected not for fashion but for effect. He did not wish to be memorable in a useful way. He wished to be noticed incorrectly. Before leaving, he checked the bat. He would not take it today. Not openly. Discipline mattered. A man with discipline could wait. Mother disagreed. You always say that, he told the cookie tin. But waiting is not failure. Thin soup. No. Failure, failure, failure. He clenched his hands and breathed through the anger until it became shape instead of fire. The big fish lived behind gates and glass, surrounded by water and expensive surfaces. Lucy. The name tasted sharp to him. She represented arrogance, machinery, money, youth, speed. Ferraris in colors named by people who had never worried about rent. Security systems. Training camps. People who believed technology could save them. But technology had not saved the little fish. Henry. He remembered her vaguely and vividly at once, the wrong woman in the right house, the glittering interruption, the body that would not behave according to his plan. She had been sick. Feverish. Careless with doors and alarms. Beautiful in the irritating way of people who assume beauty is currency accepted everywhere. He had not meant the encounter to unfold that way. Yet the little fish had led him closer to the big one. For that, perhaps, she deserved gratitude. He locked the apartment and descended the stairs of Garfield Court. The air outside was thick, warm, and bright. Cars sat in painted spaces. The spindly palms rattled faintly. Somewhere a radio played Latin music behind a closed door. Hollywood. His second home. He drove without hurry, letting neighborhoods change around him. Stucco cottages. Strip malls. Gas stations. Canals shining between buildings. He watched women at stoplights, old men walking dogs, delivery trucks, children with backpacks. People imagined themselves private in public. They were not. Every habit made a map. At a payphone, he stopped and wiped the receiver before touching it. He dialed a number from memory, listened, hung up before speaking. A test. Another small measurement. Then he returned to the Buick and wrote notes in a pocket pad. Work required records. His lungs tightened again, and he coughed until his eyes watered. The denied flu shot returned to him with fresh force. The insult of it. The doctor's bland apology. Shortage, they had said. Priorities. Pogue had priorities too. He drove on. By late afternoon, he parked where he could see traffic approaching the area near the mansion. Not too close. Never too close. The sun lowered, gilding water and glass. The world looked expensive here, polished and guarded, but Pogue knew all places had seams. A gate opened for a service vehicle. He smiled. In this audiobook of shadows and hidden motives, Pogue was not a monster who charged through the front door. He was a watcher. A collector. A man who mistook obsession for destiny. The little fish got away, he whispered. A car passed, too fast to study. But the big fish still swims. He started the Buick and followed the road until the mansion disappeared behind walls, palms, and evening light. Chapter 12, Lines in the Dark. Night settled over Richmond with a cold that seemed to rise from the river. Scarpetta stood at the window of her hotel room and looked down at traffic sliding through wet streets. The city lights blurred in the glass, layering her reflection over the world outside. She looked tired. She looked older than she felt in some ways, younger in others, as if returning had reopened a version of herself unfinished by time. Behind her, files covered the desk. Jilly Paulson. Theodore Whitby. Notes from staff meeting. A list of people to interview. A separate page where she had written only one line, "Why me?" Marino had taken the adjoining room after making a production of checking locks, windows, hallway exits, and the ice machine alcove as if assassins regularly hid near vending areas. She had let him. Benton had told him to stay close, and Marino would rather be mocked than fail at protecting her. Her phone rang. Benton. She answered but did not speak at first. "Kay," he said. The name in his voice was different from Marcus's use of it. With Benton, it held history, regret, intimacy, and something she was afraid might be distance. "Marino told me you called him," she said. "I did." "You told him Marcus is of interest." A pause. "Yes." "To whom?" "I can't discuss it on this line." She closed her eyes briefly. "I am very tired of people not telling me things." "I know. Do you?" Silence again, longer this time. "I'm sorry about Aspen," he said. "That isn't the only thing." "No." Neither of them filled the space. Love could survive silence, but it could also be injured by it. "Are you in danger?" she asked. "Not in the way you mean." "That is not comforting." "I need you to be careful in Richmond. Don't assume Jilly's case is only medical. Don't assume Marcus is only incompetent or rude. And don't assume politics are the worst of it." She looked at the files. "What are we dealing with?" "I don't know yet." It was the most honest thing he had said. After they ended the call, Scarpetta remained by the window. In the glass she saw the hotel room, the files, her own face, and beyond it the city that had once belonged to her professionally if never personally. Somewhere in a morgue drawer, Jilly Paulson remained unburied. Somewhere in the rubble of North 14th Street, dust settled over the place where Theodore Whitby had died. Somewhere in Aspen, Benton was keeping watch over a woman tied to Lucy. Somewhere in Florida, a man with a bat and a mother in a tin was planning his next move. The story had become a map with pins in 3 states. Richmond. Aspen. Hollywood. Scarpetta turned from the window and sat at the desk. She opened Jilly's file again and began at the beginning, because the dead deserved patience and because every immersive story, every act of forensic storytelling, depended on the smallest truths surviving the noise of the living. Outside, traffic whispered through the cold. Inside, under the steady lamp, Scarpetta read until the words stopped being paperwork and became a child. Jilly. 14. Found in bed. No cause yet. No manner yet. No peace yet. And until there was an answer, Scarpetta would not leave. Thank you for listening to Echoes Beneath the Dead on StoryRealm Audio. If you enjoyed this immersive story, please like, comment, and subscribe for more audiobook storytelling and relaxing narration.